Attention, attention. All units report to your favorite podcast stat. This is That's So RN, where we decode the chaos, call out the cracks, and care a little louder. Let's scrub in. Oh my goodness. Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of That's So RN. I'm your host, Logan. You already knew that though. And today we will be diving into nursing school. I know we kind of talked about nursing school a little bit last time, and that was my more personal experience. But this time we'll be kind of recapping on that, as well as jumping into more specifics and generalized things amongst various nursing schools, nursing programs, and things of that nature. So, just to recap, for my LPN program, I absolutely loved it. That's where I got my core everything. RN school, hated it. That's where I kind of built on what I already knew and learned from LPN school and transitioning to a different scope of practice. My BSN and my MSN from Capella, a lot of writing, a lot of papers, a lot of discussion boards. And then my DHA, same thing, a lot of writing and, paperwork, logistical type things. And then, of course, my practicum with a doctorate of healthcare admin looks a little bit different from your traditional, as our practicums are based around teaching, facilitating, things of that nature. So that is just a recap from last episode. Today, I would like to be getting into nursing school admissions, pre-admission, post-nursing school, NCLEX, and things of that nature. So, to start, we always want to advertise that we are all about diversity, equality, and just, inclusion. Why is it that most nursing schools advertise that, yet we're still putting out this elitist criteria that only certain people meet? And those are more likely than not the people to get into a nursing school program. Like I said, I did not really have that experience in LPN school. And then when I got my BSN and my MSN, it was a variety of people from all walks of life, all backgrounds that were in my programs. RN program, they had a criteria. They had a type. And we were, the select few that were different that got to be in the program to, I guess, showcase that they were diverse. But I already got into that a little bit last episode. We ain't gonna talk about it too much this episode. So when we are discussing grit versus grades, I don't think some people stop to think about what grit can be sometimes. So for me personally, I like to think of grit as, those people still pushing through and having that tenacity and getting things done. A lot of the times in school, those people with the most grit might not necessarily be the ones making, the highest grades or being fully attentive in class. We have to remind ourselves that grit is a lot more than just saying that you can get something done. Most of these people are tired because they're working multiple jobs, or they maybe have a family to take care of. They're surviving traumas that we may or may not know about. A lot of people look at it as that they're being lazy if they're not showing up 100% all the time when they're coming to class or clinical, which life happens, so I get it. And like I tell people all the time, especially when I was in school, life is not stopping for nobody. So just because, I'm happy, smiling, you don't know what I got going on when I leave from here. So my bills ain't stopping. I'm going to still have to work. I'm going to still have to pay for school if I'm not afforded financial aid or scholarships or whatever the case may be. So the myth of rigor in nursing school and how academic hazing is disguised as excellence. A lot of the nursing programs, I feel like, and remember, all this is just my feelings, my opinions from my experiences, are filtering out those candidates who may be able to very well understand, the struggle and better relate to our patients in the aspect of like emotional standpoint. These are usually the ones that connect better with the patients, especially when we're under pressure. I always say I personally feel for, my patients. I might not necessarily be going through the same thing they're going through, but I always have the mindset to know, they're human too. They have feelings. They should be heard. And I should try to be understanding to what they have going on, even if I'm not going through it myself or fully understand what's going on. Grades don't save lives. C's get degrees. They told us that all the time, and I never understood in school. I'm like, what? Because in school, we all want to be our best, and we all want to get all A's and do the things. There came a point in nursing school when I legit was like, this is very ghetto. This is very ghetto, and not only is it very ghetto, why am I working this hard? Not saying I was okay with just skating by, but it was just like, I'm putting in all this, and I'm already burnt out. I'm already tired, and I feel like I'm just expediting the process, trying to be an A student. So, I mean, if you can't pull all A's all the time, every semester, like, that's okay. You shouldn't have to. I know they set high expectations and try to make it about competition and do all those things, but we ain't doing all that. Because if I'm being quite honest, some of the people that I went to school with that were very, they excelled academically, they struggled. They struggled when it came, and not everyone, because there were some that could do both. And baby, if you were the pick of the litter and you could do both, good for you. But majority of the ones that I went to school with, when we would get to clinical and our hands-on portion, they were struggling immensely. I mean, struggling with, just the skills, whether it be learning the skills or it's sticking on the order to do the skills or different things like that. And generally, it would sometimes take those people a little bit longer than others. So I like to say, because I consider myself an average student, B's, C's. I think and I'm telling on myself, but I think, which it wasn't in all the classes, but in OBPs, it's probably like that's the closest I got to a 100. I really loved OB and Peds. Like, I had a 98 in that class. I was vigorously studying for that class because that was something that I was interested in at the time. So you could do anything if you put your mind to it, but some people are just okay with making the grade. Like I said, as I started progressing and getting through school, now obviously in, grad programs, MSN, doctorate, you can't walk around saying C's get degrees, and you have to really put in the work and make the grade. But for those, lower tier undergrad, do what you can, and what you can't, leave it for another day or leave it alone altogether. But I like to consider myself an average student, and I would say I was quite proficient on skills. For me personally, I knew I was not making the grade per se, so I just had to do my best when it came to doing the skills and make sure that I was really good and proficient at that. I was volunteering to do everything, absolutely everything. And my teacher sometimes would let me, and then sometimes she'd be like, okay, like, you need to give somebody else a chance. So, I mean, other than that, I would consider myself an average student. But I really just love the hands-on aspect because that's just how I learn best. So I really felt like I excelled from that front. A lot of teachers like to say, if you can't test, you can't nurse. But we all know testing does not necessarily equal critical thinking. When we're testing, most of these teachers are pulling it out of the PowerPoint. And we just need to make sure we remember what was said or what component goes with another. It's not necessarily causing us to critically think. And some of the times, they're giving us the material we need to look at to pass the test. Certain teachers, rather. There is a certain emphasis on GPA and NCLEX pass rates for different schools because they want to protect the reputation and not necessarily, their students, and they don't necessarily worry about their students. I can remember for the longest, the pressure of NCLEX. And I mean, NCLEX by itself is scary. So you tack in your teachers talking about previous classes before y'all, how they had 100% pass rate and how it's this big deal. NCLEX is this big hill you have to climb. Because when you get out of school, you are like, oh, a breath of fresh air. I'm finally done. I can kind of take a break, get my bearings before I study for God knows what is going to be on this NCLEX. So for y'all that have taken NCLEX, if you know, you know. For y'all that have not taken NCLEX, basically you could get anything on NCLEX. You can get anything. And there is a minimum of 75, I believe, and a maximum. I don't know what the maximum is. It's 100 plus, 150 plus, I believe, or it might be 150. My ADHD, I was praying hard in that test. I was praying that I did not get that because I cannot sit for a long time. So I was just hoping and praying that I did not get the maximum amount of questions. I feel like schools are making it a big deal, like I said, to just protect their reputation. So they're advertising, oh, the pass rates, or if it's somebody who maybe didn't pass, they're not including them necessarily in those numbers or their outlying case or situation. For those, we also want to take into account, again, are we just putting nurses out there to get good pass rates because we know they're going to do a good job? Or are these going to be competent, compassionate nurses when they actually hit the floor and be able to critically think and know what to do in a situation and not just something that they possibly memorized? So emotional regulation and empathy under pressure, as well as ethical decision making. How are we grading that? Can we even really grade that? These are some of the things that we can talk about it, but I don't feel like it can always be taught to somebody. I feel like in certain situations, you either have that understanding and that knowledge base or you don't. And like I said, you could be taught. It just might take a little bit longer, but I feel like this is some of the criteria we should naturally be thinking about when we are trying to bring in those students and put them in these nursing programs. Not just are they going to make the grade? Do they have these other contributing factors and components as well? So what do we do when students are kind of pushing back against an unforgiving system and, doing things like cheating? Y'all, when I was in I've been waiting to tell this story. When I was in RN school, I had this girl, I could not stand her. She was always getting into it with a classmate. She was always being messy. She always had something going on. But she was one of those people, she literally would get on your nerves or do something just off the wall, and then she'd come try to be nice to you to make up for it and get back in your good graces. So this girl, mind you, I was traveling and I was carpooling at the time with two of my other classmates who lived about 2 hours. So I would drive to them and then they'd drive to the school. This girl emails us a whole test bank that she went and looked up and bought from wherever. Mind you, nobody asked her. She's emailing it to the whole class. So she pissed off one of our other classmates and they told on her ass. They were like, yeah, she out here giving the test bank to everybody. So they ended up reconfiguring and doing all the things, which after some further investigation, this person was struggling. This person was struggling in the class, and it was OB, mother, baby, like special populations, all those things. And she was really having a hard time. So she originally got it for herself, but she just thought it would be okay to, I guess spread what she thought was spreading the love. Unsolicited, baby, we didn't ask you, and we ain't got time for that, because I know me personally, I'm driving too far to be getting caught up in any scandals. And if I have to go down for something, Lord, y'all better pray it's going to take Jesus and all 12 disciples to get me up off of you if something happens to me, my license, my career. So I'm not even going to put myself in that position. So what are we doing to cope with this? Is this what you would consider, something that they're doing because they feel like the expectations are unrealistic? I felt like for the program that we were in, because it was so fast paced, you really did have to make sure you were on top of your stuff because you had no room for error. And I mean, one slip up could have you not passing the program and getting through. Now, I am not condoning cheating at all, and I'm not saying it's right to cheat. It's never right to cheat. You should always do stuff the right way and go about it the right way and try to get the help that you need if you need it. But what I can say is I can understand why some people feel enough stress and pressure to take those routes, even though that's not necessarily always the best route to take. And it can sometimes affect not just them, but others. Because after that situation and after she got told on, they changed our whole testing format. They changed the way they did, everything and how they did it and just how they went about giving the test in very particular. And I know they have test banks and stuff that they use for the colleges and all that, but it was to the point that the teachers were having to handwrite everything, and half of it was not making sense. And it would be like, oh, well, you did this, and the book said this, so we're challenging a bunch of questions. They're having to go back, figure out what's what, do grading curves. It just caused a whole mess. So y'all do it the right way. And if you need help, don't wait till the last minute to get help. Don't cheat and jeopardize not only your chances of becoming a nurse, but your classmates too, because it's not just you in that class and you don't know who and how it can affect somebody else. So students are often punished for cheating, but the schools never take accountability for, toxic workloads, outdated teaching methods. That was a really big one. And lack of mental health support. Lack of mental health support is big. Trailing back to earlier, sometimes we're doing so much and we're just not all there. And I will say, sis did not get punished. She did not get punished. She went, put them big old dog eyes on and said that it was a moment of weakness and blah, blah, blah. Gave her whole little spiel for the council and for the class. And she got to go scot-free without no consequences. So, yeah. Yeah, that's all I can say right now. She didn't get punished by any means, but I do know in other instances, people have been punished. They've been kicked out of programs. They've been suspended to have to come back and start at a different time, things of that nature. So we like to work in systems that sometimes teach teamwork, but enforce individual survival. That is one thing I absolutely loved, and I can't brag on these people enough. That's one thing I loved about my LPN program. We had a group chat, and when somebody was struggling, it really was a team effort. Now, with that being said, we studied together, we helped each other as much as we could, but we can never sit, in somebody's place and take their test for them or sit in their place and learn for them or do what they need to do. So in that aspect, I can understand why it's, every man for themselves. But I loved the team aspect of if somebody's struggling or needs something extra, we can help them and we can give that to them and help them get to where they need to be. And I feel like that's why a lot of our class, we lost a few people, but I felt like that's why a lot of my LPN class was able to go through and get to the end because we had that support. But at the end of the day, it is, every man for themselves. Because like I said, when you get to the end, it's great that you study together for tests, for NCLEX, for whatever. But only you can go in and take that NCLEX, and only you can use that license and things of that nature. So we just have to be mindful of it from that aspect. And then if students are constantly choosing integrity and survival and which one they're going to do for the day, what does that say about the system and the schools and the criteria and all the things we're doing? If there was just one person, we could maybe tailor it or put it to that one individual. But I find that a lot of people do that. That's a big issue. And especially when I started moving into my BSN and MSN, people were almost bombarding our group chats and stuff with like, pay me and I'll do your classes. Pay me and I'll do this. And it's just like, baby, if you get caught, you in trouble. I'm in trouble. I'm paying for this out of pocket. I done had to go sell feet pics on the side. Like, let's not do any of that. But what does that say about the systems, that we're in and how they're doing things? Because obviously it's a problem if multiple people feel the need that they need to cheat, and we need to get some more resources in place to be able to better mitigate that, because that shouldn't be someone's first go-to is to go cheat on a test or to cheat on a worksheet or to cheat in any way or to be even thought about. So what can y'all fix? They like to make NCLEX a make or break event after years of proving yourself. Now, with this, I will say I agree that we take NCLEX. I'm all for taking an actual licensure to really truly gauge, what you will be quizzed on or what you will be tested on. I'm all for that. What I will say is all the changes and things that go on with NCLEX, maybe better tailoring, because I'm going to be quite honest, and I'm going to go off on a little side trail now. When I took my NCLEX for LPN, they wanted to do, all kinds of reviews, and we studied for everything because we don't know what's going to be on NCLEX. And I think I studied the most with the biggest segment, med surge. That's what I really push for RN too. But baby, for LPN, I got a lot of peds questions and I got a lot of dosage calculations. And it was just finding a happy medium. It's already something that we would consider a stressful event. Finding a place in a happy medium where we can kind of better gauge what to study and how to be prepared for those things. And same thing with RN. When I took that NCLEX, I studied heavily med surge, but I got a lot of positioning questions and pregnancy questions. So just being able to better equate what we're learning and all the things we're doing so that it's not missed time or wasted time when it comes to taking the NCLEX, because we do put a lot of work into going to nursing school and finishing nursing school. And some programs are, 2 years, 4 years. So being able to not make that be, we've done all this work, we've gotten through all these years of school, and now I can't pass NCLEX, or I've gotten here and I haven't passed yet. That's stressful. Y'all love to commercialize NCLEX prep. My school wanted to do HRSA review. Everybody was raving about HRSA review. Some of my classmates love HRSA review. Y'all, I got that workbook and they're literally a fill in the blank. Oh, the heart pumps blood. This does this. And I'm I'm not learning anything. I am memorizing. Only things I could truly say that I enjoyed as far as NCLEX prep, because I had to rewire my whole brain after sitting through what my school paid for, which was HRSA review, and we all did it together. I feel it reminds me of preschool, a little cute fill in the blank, keep busy activity, not actually challenging your brain and challenging your mind to try to think and figure out what's what. A lot of it was we're just memorizing content, but we're not actually, mastering the concepts of the different systems or the different meds. And it's not really putting the dots together and connecting the pieces. It's just, like I said, the heart pumps blood to the body. It's just more in-depth, more complex. I did not like HRSA review. I'm sorry that y'all wasted y'all money on HRSA review, because I did not use it for my NCLEX prep. When I NCLEX prepped, I used High Yield. Absolutely loved High Yield. I went to a few of their in-person Zoom sessions. And there was another man on YouTube. I'm going to have to get y'all that information because I can't remember his name now that it's coming to me. And then the last thing that I used, just because of how I learn and what I need, was UWorld. When I tell you I felt a breath of fresh air and relief when I did UWorld and went to take NCLEX, the layout exactly the same. I'm a person, I need to constantly feel like I'm testing my knowledge. So for me to go through the questions, I would take the max number. Like I said, I don't remember what it is. Is it 250? I would take the max number of whatever I could possibly get on NCLEX. I'd do randomized questions, and I would literally sit and give myself a 5-hour timer. I would sit and practice just like I would have taken NCLEX. I would sit in a quiet room, no distractions, and I would pretend that I'm taking my test with my whiteboard. I can't erase nothing, the whole nine, just to kind of train and condition myself and help. Now, did that help when I went to actually take my test? It did once I sat down, but when I went in and was registering and everything, y'all, I was covered in lavender oil. And the lady was like, "Are you okay? Like, you're really sweaty." I was like, "I'm good, girl. This is oil." So yeah, in that aspect, it didn't help. But the comfortability I had when I sat down to sit and take my test, I mean, was unmatched. Was I still nervous? Yes, because it's new, it's a test, and people get nervous. I'm human. But I felt better knowing that it's something that I had already kind of pretty much familiarized myself with. So when I went to take it, I took it and was like, bam. We like to try to talk down, but NCLEX is traumatic. I think not so much RN, but LPN for sure. So I was the third person in my class to take it. And at that time, it was like fresh COVID. They had cut down on the number, and either like you got the minimum or you got the maximum, somewhere in between. Like, you never know. It just shuts off. So like I said, I was the third one to take it in my class. Two of my classmates before me took it. One of them, it shut off at the minimum, 75, and she passed. The other one shut off at 75, and she didn't pass. And I was like, oh God. So then I sat down, and like when my test went to 76, I immediately started screaming in my head. I asked for a bathroom break. I got up, I went in the bathroom, and I bawled crying. I looked in the mirror. I'm like, girl, get your shit together. And was like, okay, like, let's go do this. Take a deep breath, calm down, go sit. Read all my questions 3 times. It ended up shutting off at like 83. And I'm like, oh God, I'm an idiot. What does that mean? That was the most quiet ride home ever. It was silent. All I heard was my tires slapping the road because I was just ready to go and be done. I'm glad though that it's not like before where you take a paper test and you wait weeks on end to get your result. It's 2 days, which you would think I paid you enough paying for my actual NCLEX to schedule it, but you have to pay a little fee and it gives you your results. And speaking of scheduling, I paid my fee and scheduled it I rescheduled my test like 6 times. I tried to reschedule it again the day before, but since it was within 24 hours, it wouldn't let me the last time that I did it. So that's the only reason I ended up taking it when I did. I am very type B. As I told y'all earlier in the episode, I cannot sit down. So when it came to me studying, I had a plan. I had a study plan, a good old 5-week study plan. Had all my stuff broken down with UWorld. You could take a generalized quiz, and it kind of tells you your strong points and your points of opportunity, and it makes you a study plan based off of that. Yeah, I was like 2 weeks in, and I was just like, I need to go ahead and just schedule my test because I can't sit and do what I need to do. So I went ahead and scheduled it. I was like, oh, that's too soon. So I pushed it out like another few weeks, and then I moved it back up, and then I pushed it down, and then I moved it back up. And then, like I said, the night before, it wouldn't let me change it, so I ended up taking it. And then for my RN, it cut off on the minimum questions. That one was very nerve-wracking for me, not necessarily the NCLEX, but because when I was taking my test, they were getting ready to roll out New Gen. So if I did not pass, I would have had to not only restudy for NCLEX, but I would have had to restudy for the New Gen way, which apparently they give you lab values and half credit on New Gen NCLEX. But I just did not want that stress in my life, so I'm happy that I passed 75 questions and was done with it. I feel like I was kind of flying through those questions. I'm like, but I locked in and was like reading my questions 3 times and clicking what I thought best fit. So yeah, you wait. People are always comparing. That was a big thing. Oh, did you take yours yet? Or if you took yours, how many questions did you get? And then that waiting, and then the identity crisis that some people have when they fail. I have never personally failed NCLEX. I was fortunate enough to study and pass both times on the first try. But some of the people that I've talked to after not passing, they just felt a sense of, shame and embarrassment and sadness and other things. And it's just like, that doesn't make you. You worked hard and you got the grade. I simply do believe that sometimes it's not you and what you don't know. I feel like it's anxiety, testing anxiety, and just fear of the unknown. Because like I said, you can get anything on NCLEX. And here I am studying all of med-surg, and I barely got any med-surg questions on my NCLEX, which was kind of for me because I'm like, dang, them different populations have different vitals and everything else. So I had to really dig in the bank in my brain and try to remember that information. But just some of them saying that they felt like they didn't deserve to be a nurse or they didn't know if they would be a good nurse. And I find a lot of people that have not passed on the first try, they've had that crisis and just trying to figure out where do they start again and kind of pick up the pieces to get back on track to the goal that they were trying to get to. So post-NCLEX, emptiness and depression after years of being on the go. That is so true. I was very, not depressed, but after I took NCLEX, I really was like, wow, like I'm done. I have nothing else to do. What else can be done at this point? I've done everything. I didn't even feel like celebrating. I'm just worn out at that point. And I feel like I should be, when you're always on go and you're constantly doing stuff and you don't have anything left, so you feel like you should be doing something. You don't have anything to do and you shouldn't be doing anything but relaxing, most likely, vacationing, celebrating. But you're like, man, that's just, you get that feeling. You're like, I'm supposed to be doing something. I'm supposed to be doing something. I don't know what, but I'm supposed to be doing something. Just because your body's used to constantly going. I find of new grads questioning, is it even worth it because of the conditions that the system has, because they are prioritizing performance instead of purpose. And I will always say anything worth having is not easy. If you worked hard, put in the work, took your NCLEX, passed your classes, did all those things, it is most definitely worth it. And it is what you make of it at the end of the day, because you can do anything in the nursing world. The options are limitless for real. So we find that there is an obsession with, perfection early on, and that creates nurses that are usually afraid to ask for help. They usually are afraid to admit any mistakes because they feel like it might be frowned upon, or somebody's going to say something to them because they're supposed to be perfect and they cannot mess up at all. Or they're afraid to speak up in work. If you have not learned this about me beforehand, you will learn it eventually. I have no problem speaking up if there's an issue. I have no problem, which I was a perfectionist at first. But once I got into the nursing world and see how things were, too much happens. You can't ever not speak up or not say anything. And if you do make a mistake and you say something, that could be the difference between you, saving a patient's life or really hurting them or harming them or making the situation worse. So how can we fix this formula? What can we do to ensure that nursing is measured differently, or what would it look like if nursing was measured differently? So what if we valued admissions, resilience, leadership, emotional intelligence, all that alongside academics instead of doing a comparison, that versus academics, kind of compiling it all in one and making that aspect of criteria, that we look for or look to gauge if a person will be able to be a good, competent, compassionate, full-fledged nurse, right? And then should schools implement various or more, kind of structured mentorships that are inclusive with reflective practice instead of just, giving exams? Is there more of a shadowing we can do, or ensuring that there's a better clinical experience when we are getting these people in, so that we can kind of train and condition them beforehand to know, hey, this is really something I want to do, or hey, this is something I don't want to do at all. I don't want to touch it. I'm good. And then can AI and simulation tools ethically be used for learning and help transform learning instead of replacing it? Y'all know AI is really big now, and they're taking over everything. They're taking people's jobs, and they are constantly in the mix, want to listen to your conversations, read your emails, rewrite your emails, and just populate information and data off of various things. So I can understand why some people would be worried that it would come in and change everything. But I feel like if it's implemented the proper way, it could be used in tandem with, traditional means and methods of teaching and learning. especially in today's age with things changing rapidly. If we use it the right way, it could definitely be an advantage. And then what would happen if NCLEX incorporated, more world ethics and communication versus just theory or what we think might happen? I think it will be phenomenal. I would have to do more research about, how NCLEX is now, but I'm assuming they had a meeting and they sat down and was like, some things need to change because this system or this way isn't working. And that's why they, like I said, started giving half credit and helping more with the values, which I'm still salty about that because Shoals had me up day and night memorizing all my values for every single thing. But at least I know it will always be stuck with me and I'll have it at the forefront of my mind without even having to necessarily look at something. But I digress. But I think that may be why they kind of changed up NCLEX and how they do things and how they are grading and gauging these newer nurses coming in. And then how can we rebuild a system to prioritize competence and compassion and not just compliance? I've talked about this many, many times. I'm not going to really get too in depth. I feel like more can definitely be done. Compliance is important, but not necessarily stressing, the other things don't matter when in the bigger picture of it all, everything matters. And I feel like you kind of can't have one without the other to be a good nurse. I feel like you need both. You don't just need, book smarts. You need the people aspect too. And you need to know how to talk to people, whether it's de-escalating a situation or using therapeutic communication. If a person's having a hard time because they found out a diagnosis they didn't know about, or maybe a family member's sick and they just need comfort or they want somebody to listen to, all of that plays a part on one another and it all should be considered. And then another thing I will say is we like to, talk about these systems. These systems are the same ones that are, rewarding those people back in school that had perfect GPAs. They are later being rewarded, as the nurses who never call in, who never challenge authority, and who never rest, are always picking up extra, always doing a little bit more, always making sure that they are, helping the team out, even if it puts them at risk. Don't be that person. And I am reading this, and when I was going through my little script of all things, I laughed because I did not have a perfect GPA, and I'm on the opposite end of that spectrum. I'm a call in, especially if I need a mental health day or I feel like y'all doing a little bit too much, or maybe legit my kid is sick or something's going on, or I'm sick and don't feel good. Challenging authority. I do that all the time. So, and I didn't have a perfect GPA, so that's right along the lines of where I probably should be, right? And then never resting. I'm a rest. Ask somebody, if I don't do nothing else, I'm going to take a nap and I'm a rest. I will probably rest and take a nap before I eat a lunch, because I need that to feel, rejuvenated. That's how I cope with all my life struggles. I'll go to sleep, and when I wake up, I'll figure it out then, right? We'll worry about it when I wake up in 30 minutes. So I feel like education reform could definitely, change the workforce if we kind of shift our focus as much as we do on, healing others to healing nurses and taking care of them. That could be, a huge win for multiple people and multiple systems, and make all the difference for not only the kind of nurses and people you're getting in, but for the care that the patients are getting and for your organization. Because if they are taken care of and they're all good, they're going to want to keep coming in. If something's wrong, they're going to speak highly of you. Y'all know word of mouth is huge. They're going to get those people in, generate more revenue, and you'll be able to, have more and do more. And then lastly, grit. Grit, I feel, should be measured on how we show up for people. It's not just necessarily, like I said, I got all A's, I passed NCLEX in 75 questions, and I got everything right. That should not be the basis of our grit. Do we know this person is going to get on the floor and go above and beyond for these patients? Are they gonna, not only go above and beyond for their patients, but they're gonna look out for their coworkers? They're gonna be a helping hand. They're gonna just be an all around good nurse and a good person. That plays a part. Because I really hate to see the people that are really smart and there I go using that word again. The people that are really smart and they are, coming in, they're making the grade, but they're buttholes. They don't know how to talk to people. They don't know how to answer a phone. They kind of do what they want to do, and you just have to deal with it. And it's really unfortunate, but I see that a lot now more than before, especially in my new role. And then we should maybe start questioning who's breaking under the system that never learned to care for its own, instead of who's cheating or who's doing this, who's doing that. Y'all know, and I done said this before, y'all know them organizations, love to say, well, what could you have done better? Baby, what could you have done? What could you have done to ensure that this didn't happen and put me in this position as your hardworking nurse? What could you have done? They love to blame and pick and say that, but what are y'all doing on y'all's end? It's not necessarily just always, that person or that nurse. So now that I'm done ranting about my nursing school experience, various admissions, things of that sort, I want to kind of talk about the different things that I had to do, and I know is a thing now, that we're taking tests and things for admission that I didn't get to mention earlier. When I was in LPN school or getting into LPN school, I took the acuplacer, which I had already taken in school, high school, and my scores were still good. So that went. Now, before I went to LPN school, I did try to get into an RN program. I like to do what I say is the scenic route. I like to tell people I took the scenic route. So I did apply for the RN program. And we had to take T's. That test is hard. I was really struggling with math. Is not my strong suit. And when I say that, I can do math, but that's not my favorite subject. My favorite subjects in school were history and English. So I'm like, yeah, whatever. But I really struggled on the T's test for the math portion. And my school, for whatever reason, wouldn't just let me retake the math section. I had to retake the whole thing, and I was like, yeah, no, I'm good. And then I think they give you like a certain amount of time. I'm like, you know what? I'll just get into LPN school. It's easier for most people. It is easier, but I'm going to be quite honest. A lot of people that I've talked to, they would prefer, going that RN first and getting it out the way. But you know what? For the people that can do that and can afford it and all that, that's wonderful. I'm so blessed and fortunate that I took the route that I took, just starting out with my LPN first, because it just made a lot of things later down the line more manageable for me personally. I remember for my RN test, I thought I was going to have a heart attack. For my RN entry exams, I literally took something called NACE. NACE is basically a mock NCLEX. I said, I just did this. I don't want this stress. I just went through all this. Why am I taking NCLEX again? So I find a lot of people, I'm always seeing in our local school groups, people struggling with T's and all those things. And I feel like it maybe is a little bit harder than it should be. And some people pass with flying colors, and that's great. But I feel like some of the focus, again, shouldn't be these testings and all these things. Nursing is very competitive. When you're in your prereqs and you're doing all these things, oh, what are you going to get into? What is your major? Almost all the people are going to be like, nursing. I'm here for nursing. Everybody wants to make the grade and do well because they know that's what's going to get them in. And even some of the people that make the grade, I've seen on several occasions, A/B students, they have all the criteria and everything met. They are Stark students, and they've made sure they've done the best and done the most. And some of those people still don't get in. So I feel like sometimes it's really just a pick and choose of who they want and getting in on their good graces. But yeah, that's something I didn't get to talk about with some of the entry tests that I got to take when I was first getting into school. So just be mindful of whatever test you're taking, don't procrastinate, y'all. Give yourself enough time to not only study the information, but study it, retain it, be able to, if you, for whatever reason, go to take your test and you don't pass or you need extra time, give yourself that leeway so you're not like, oh, it's crunch time and now you're stressed trying to do whatever you need to do. So now that I'm off my little soapbox for the episode, I would like to go into our mental health moment, our mind shift. And today's themes are going to be self-worth and integrity. So the task: align your actions with values under pressure, and remember that value is not defined by your grades. So that is something for y'all to think about. On next week's episode, we will be talking about profession gatekeeping and why nurses eat their young. Why do y'all do that? We'll find out on next episode. I feel like I'm Dragon Ball Z. We'll all find out on next week's episode of Dragon Ball Z. Okay, anyways. So yes, that is what we will be talking about on next week's episode. I am appreciative for everyone who has stayed along for the journey thus far. I know sometimes it can be quite tedious and I'll go off on little tangents, but this really is therapeutic for me, and just being able to talk about stuff from my point of view and stuff that I want to talk about, and not just necessarily always be, I see a lot of nursing podcasts or healthcare podcasts that they want to talk about just drama all the time, which I'm all down for a little bit of tea, but just really having, like I said, that safe space to vent and talk about things that most people probably wouldn't care to talk about or don't feel comfortable talking about. So I'm really excited to see you guys again next week. Please keep tuning in. And as always, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, content, things that you want me to talk about, things you want me to talk about on my show, please do not hesitate to reach out. So until next time, I will see you guys soon. Bye.